establish policies and practice of orderly legal entry into the country. I think what has been a problem in South Africa, we had these porous borders whereby people were entering through the fences, some jumping through the rivers and so on, and it has been a little bit chaotic on the ground. So we've made a commitment that will work even at a community level and ensure that we create special dispensation like we had for Basutus. We've had one for Zimbabweans, for people to come forward if they are already in the country so that they have an opportunity of being taken through, given the right papers, the right permit, and they become legal in the country. But, you know, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity, TG. I've just come back from Germany, where in the conference of the 10th Global Forum on Migration for Development, much as we are looking at security aspects when people enter our gate, but in partnership with business, we have to start a process whereby migration is a vehicle for development and jobs. And have examples and say, if we partner with country X, how do we ensure that we allow migration even for skills, critical skills? We talk about the future that is unknown, the jobs that will be there. We need to partner with countries that are leading in those and fast track migration for development and jobs, not only to think about controlling and securing our space. While that is critical and important, but we should aggressively seek partnerships at a regional level and at a global level. While we were there, countries were approaching us from Europe, European Union, North America, saying we want to work with South Africa. And there are huge opportunities that can come out of those opportunities. Program Director, please, if you can allow John Fabs to talk to this other.
Sure. Can we get the mic to Honourable Fabs? We have run out of time, so we need to start wrapping. There, where's the mic? Ah, good. Yeah, this main table.
Thank you very much, Daryl, and also addressing our TG, as William Kiza, and also the Minister of Social Development, Batabili, and of course, Lingi William Kiza, the Minister of Home Affairs, and all other Deputy Ministers, Deputy Minister Tabeta. But on procurement, the main thing, the issue was about localization as well, and procurement should be seen as an instrument to serve business and the broader society, because what it is doing is driving local production in the agricultural sector and in the manufacturing sector and in services. And all that it is saying is put your mouth in the right place. Do things that you are saying, you are talking about, you are supporting business, etc. And we say we will support you if you manufacture and ensure you use local materials and labor. We will support you because we will ensure through the Public Procurement, Preferential Procurement Act, that we will insist that our public government, the government itself, public sector, and the entities, the biggest procurer and purchaser in any country is government. And in Africa, it is always significantly the government. We don't force the private sector to do this because we are members of the World Trade Organization. We persuade you to become more patriotic. Serve your country and become rich. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Joan. Dr. Mkhize, if you can wrap up for us.
Thank you very much, Daryl, the convener for the PBF. The ministers, Mr. Patel, we acknowledge his contribution in absentia. Minister Batabile for social development, Minister Hlengiwe, Mkize for home affairs, Minister Dlodlo, who I believe has gone to the conference already, Deputy Minister Woosthuizen and Deputy Minister Tabete. Thank you very much for your presence this morning, together with the chairperson of the Trade Investment Committee, Joan Fabs. Thank you very much. A word of appreciation to our sponsor, MultiChoice, with the chairperson, Nolo Letele, who's here. I may as well just sell him out to say, by the way, his father used to be the Treasurer General of the African National Congress way back in around 1958. Somewhere. Yes, and so you must know that Treasurer Generals can actually give rise to very prosperous businessmen from what you can see there. Thank you, Noldo. And the chairperson, the president of BBC, thank you for all your support, and all the business leaders who are present, diplomatic corps with us, and all the business. Thank you very much. Deputy Minister Dlodlo has left. I wanted to see how she responds to Minister Ibrahim Patel's slogan, #Data must fall. And it sounds good, eh? I really hope we can pick that fight up. I saw the students didn't only just want the fees to fall, but the data as well. Now, these days, the issue of data is such that now I've got a grandchild who's 5 years. He knows when Coco's datas are finished, because he goes to play those games and finish the data. And then Coco, please buy more data. The data are finished. So it's an important issue, because around digital economy, it's about ensuring that our generation, current and next generation, don't lose out on this digital economy. There's a fourth revolution coming. It's going to be based on knowledge, on digitization, on this knowledge that for us it was something unimaginable. For the kids, it's 2-year-old can play on your thing and look for something can go and look into the games and so on. They can operate this thing with ease. At 2 years, there's no problem for them. That is what we must understand. It's a cultural revolution it's a serious revolution, as we say, fourth revolution with robotics coming and all of this. It's a very important issue. So I hope it can be picked up. I hope also we're going to pick it up in that conference. The point that, because of time, the minister did not address was that whole settlement with the construction sector industry is a lot more comprehensive. There's a 1.5 billion rand that's been put aside to help in the training and in support training for artisans, as well as inclusion support for small business as they enter into the construction industry. Actually, we wanted that discussion to move on to include possibility of government making a contribution, as well as private sector, and creating the first basics of what we could call a construction bank to support the industry. I hope we can still push that discussion, and again, I'm saying this as an opinion, not that it's part of the agreement at this point, but the amount has been put in there, 1.5 billion has been put out there. The point that I agree with BBC, they didn't say today, is that not all those companies who were accused of collusion are participating in the voluntary rebuild program, which is to help to be part of this transformation. Now, BBC has called for tougher action and penalties to be levied on those who don't participate. I agree with them. The issue is you can't have a kind of program that exonerates the companies who are alleged to be involved, and then when the because they've participated in rebuilding our country and our democracy. And then on the other side, there are others who want to do the collusion, but they also don't want to help in the rebuilding of the country. They can't have it both ways. So that issue, I think we need to focus on and deal with. The other points that have been raised, obviously, I think the minister had to deal with. I think there's an important point raised by two people in different ways. The one gentleman talked about the huge steel trading companies, and talked about people who have to be finding themselves in between. What happens to those people? And then I think the same issue that Paul has raised about, big oligopolies or monopolies, and then you've got small people playing in between. That's an issue that I don't know what the answer should be. However, the Black Industrialist Program is supposed to address precisely those. I think for the black business, look at that opportunity and then come and submit those proposals to be funded, to be participating there, probably at a greater scale than what you might be feeling that you'll be squeezed. But the issue was the gentleman who spoke, clearly he understands the steel industry. I could pick up from that, which was quite interesting. So the question of those black industrialists, the minister sat here and spoke about the figure that the numbers now of the projects have gone to about 77. When Minister Davis spoke yesterday, the other day, he spoke about the numbers being 46, almost approved. So it looks like there's quite a lot of interest that's coming in. I've also heard that not only the DFIs are getting involved, but other funding and investment groups are also wanting to partner so that you can expand this thing, so it doesn't only become just the DFIs, but that the other financial houses are interested in getting into this thing, as long as the projects are viable and are going to make sense, as it were, business sense, as it were. So I think let's not talk from a distance and cry and moan. Go in there and tell us what doesn't work. We assume that your business is going to be making business sense and therefore fundable. Then let's go into this thing. So I think let's move beyond the point of all the time, this has not worked, this is not working, let's go in there and make it work. That's what Black's Industrialist Program must be about. It must be about people going in there and finding out why it's not helpful, why is it not working, change until it ultimately succeeds. So I would say that my approach to both those questions would be go in there, tell us what doesn't work, and let's deal with it. Of course, it also deals with the issue that was raised about DFIs. I think this issue has to be dealt with. We will be going to the commission with Madam Danisa Baloyi, and I'm hoping that we will be in the commission where those issues will be raised. We have discussed this issue several times, and we agree that there must be some difference with DFIs to the usual commercial institutions. Where is the advantage? That's what we need to look at. From where we sit, it must be about development of black industrialists, funding programs that would have been probably difficult for commercial institutions to fund, but there must be a way where we're able to give a bit of an edge so that they can actually move on and succeed as business. So I think that's an issue. The point about EIA has been raised. It's a perennial question. We must continue to discuss it, but I like the idea of consolidating and creating a comprehensive EIA process for a whole group of, thank you, for a whole group of programs that are across different districts and across different projects, so that we don't have the delay. This is one area where we get delay. Sometimes the question we always ask ourselves, where do we strike the balance between development and environmental conservation? And what will make you determine which side you fall onto? And therefore, how does that prioritization help to discipline the process of achieving EIA approvals quicker? So it's an issue that does create a frustration. I always remember a friend of mine who spoke about, being forced. They were doing a housing project, and here they received an objection about the preservation of the black-headed dwarf chameleons. Something that we had never heard about, and then they gave the story of how these chameleons, at night, they have to move up to the stick of the grass and sit over there until the morning so that they are safe from predators, etc., etc. And he tells us how they had to go into the field shining torches to look at the eyes of the chameleons and try and get a sense how many of them are here. They had to put up a fence wire so that when these chameleons go up, they must then fall over and not, they will then be safe, they won't be part of the project and so on. Unfortunately, after they spent 2 million in that whole process, then they put the housing settlement, and within the first few weeks, that whole fence was actually vandalized, and it was ripped off and so on, and that's how their 2 million rands worth of investment had gone. So the question is that we need to look very much more closely to how do we just go beyond the question of having one company having to spend money, but understand that that conservation is actually aligned to the culture and the understanding of the people who are there. Otherwise, some of it is a requirement that in fact does not remain sustainable afterwards. But the delay that it causes may be a challenge. So it's a complex issue. Then the other issue around the shortage of capital, I think that also has been brought in. But an interesting point about the state's actuarial department. Actually, State South Africa and the Department of Social Development, the social development is welfare and population development. And so the population development part, they do work together to deal with the issues of demographics. You may well be having a point about the level of coordination, which will then mean that whatever the stats are, there is a whole plan that begins to deal with it. And I think if there was enough time, we would be talking a bit more about it, because Minister has been indicating to me that there are issues that have actually arisen out of this. The whole question of youth dividend and whether the country has successfully taken advantage of the youth dividend at this point is an issue that they're busy discussing. And it is a challenge that we have to look at as South Africa in general, both business and private sector, because the question of investing in the youth for the future is a serious matter that will determine whether this youth bulge becomes a dividend or a time bomb. And that's a very, very significant issue. The growth of Africa, and in terms of its own advantages for future investment, lies on the fact that you have got so much of youth that in another 50 years or so, 50% of the youth in the whole world will actually be residing in the continent. And so the future for our continent resides on that. But I wouldn't argue that the investment in the bricks and mortar and roads is more important than investing in that youth. So capital investment in the human capital is a lot more important for the future of the country, because that's where a lot of new ideas and new skills, new expertise, you can invest in a lot more engineers, then in future they'll go and build more bridges rather than building more bridges and saying the youth must wait. So I know you didn't say so. I'm just simply saying the point that's important is about coordinating these issues, which is your point, which I agree with. Then the minister has spoken about the issue of migration. It's a challenge. My point, which I've been raising also the other day, is that we need to also accept that for Africa as a region, you have to make sure that there are multiple centers of development. That's what's going to disperse all the African all over the continent. If there's growth in one side, they'll all go there. Why? Because it's their own continent anyway. So they will go there, and you're not going to stop people from going to look for opportunities. It happens all over the world. But as I was making the other example, when Nigeria was growing the way it was growing, a lot of South Africans were going that way. And they go all over. You'll find a lot of South Africans in Kenya. One day I was visiting in Kenya, in Uganda. I met a guy, hey, I used to be Premier. So he said, hey, Premier, how are you? And I looked at the guy, and he says, this is my home. I said, so where do you know me from? He said, no, I live in Durban. I said, why? He says, no, I'm actually running big business. He mentioned a number of things that I know. He's at home there. And it's going to be like that for many people. So the issue of us participating in the growth and development in the rest of the continent is how we are going to deal with migration. One thing that's very difficult, excuse me, is to police human beings. Human beings have always been moving. I can tell you now, it's now open that people are moving. When we're in the underground, police never used to stop us. We used to cross the borders in and out, and there was no problem. Tell me today, there's no big fights and tensions and wars and so on. What's going to make people stop moving when they think they're going to get a job if they come to Johannesburg? So that is the issue. But none of you are going to be stopped from going to Cameroon if you think that there's a big business opportunity. You'll be there. So the point which you must understand is that this migration thing is is a symptom to deal with it. The real issue is the economy. Economic growth and multiple centers of growth in the continent. That's one of the things that will help us. Then we will take forward this issue about the PBF hosting. We do host them with the women in business, so we'll deal with it. Mr. excuse me, Mrs. Taibosh from Santaco. No, the ANC has not forgotten the taxis. We haven't forgotten the taxi industry. I'll ask what's the issue with recapitalization. You were not here when 2 days ago I was talking about the automotive sector, saying that we have met with that sector and they are very keen in participating in this economic transformation. I'm afraid, though, that we need to do a bit more of homework, me and you, inside the taxis. Because the level of organization, the level of working as a united front is weak. That's where our problem is. 200,000 owners and 300,000 taxis and 1 million dependents is a very big enterprise if we were to be able to combine them. You could literally take over a lot of the supply chains, the supply of tires, the supply of fuel, shareholding in the manufacturing of cars in the dealership and in the kiosk, all the way coming from Johannesburg to Durban, and controlling all of that issue if we're all more organized. We need to get a different mindset in the leadership of the taxi industry because they are a very successful enterprise. 16 million rands every day circulating in this thing, and about 2.5 to 3 billion rands every year. If all of that money was harnessed in an organized setting, you are actually a candidate for radical economic transformation. Let's talk unity inside the taxi industry. So I want to say at the end of the day, our point on this matter, radical economic transformation is the way to go. We must make sure there's growth here. We must make sure that the jobs are created. We must make sure that there's transformation. All of this is what we need to take this country forward. And in so doing, we need everybody to look for the space in this whole big assignment. Each and every one of us must find a way to get ourselves involved. And it's not going to be possible to sit there and expect others to do it, and that's when you're going to be able to go in. We're going to go into it now, all of us. We're going to discuss this issue and say, how is it that we're going to make this thing move forward? Unfortunately, although this is a very important conference, here we're going to talk policies. Those policies won't walk themselves into your company. Those policies will only work when all of us are then convinced that's the way we must go, and therefore we practice them. So these dialogues are not just about us meeting the ministers. They're about you having to start a conversation that is different amongst yourselves. You are going to be the architects of growth, employment, and transformation in our economy. Then go ahead and look at how you're going to do it yourself. The ANC is going to provide a framework in the policy discussions. We may be able to implement a lot of these issues. Some of them will not be successful simply because you didn't stand up. You must know that the ANC is not talking because of the ANC as its members. We're talking about this thing because this is the only way that's going to save the economy of South Africa. It is the only way that's going to help us rebuild this economy. It's the only way that's going to make sure that the youth that is coming up is not living in despair. As I was walking out of the restaurant, I met one young fellow. He says his name is Gifilwe Mukwena. He lives in that Ward 27 where the hotel is. And he just walked to me and says, you know, Baba, where I come from, people have got no hope. This economy needs to be fixed. Otherwise, we're going to turn against you because we don't know where else to go. And I looked at this youngster, and he says, please, I've gone to school, I've been educated, but I can still find a problem in getting a job in this economy until you leaders fix it. We don't know what to do. And the point is that when we talk about radical economic transformation, we must know it is not just because there are populists here who want to, appear radical and so on. We've come to a point where we've looked over 23 years and we have said there's something that is outstanding and is glaring, and that is the restructuring of our economy. And it must happen. And so the point of these discussions is to say, you start that discussion. Business is good because you can do something where you are and make a change. So go ahead and make sure that this transformation happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Treasurer General. Now, they say that the first shall be last, but in the case of multi-choice, they are first and last. Okay, because we started with Calver, and I'd now like to, the Treasurer General has acknowledged Nolu Letele, Chairperson of Multi-Choice. But from our side, Nolu, also thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it. And the last word will be yours, please.
Thank you, Daryl. My task is a pleasant one. It is really to thank you all, honorable ministers, Minister Ibrahim Patel, who has left us now. Ladies and gentlemen, we will always partner with the PBF on an ongoing basis. It's been a relationship that's been going on for some time. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to actually ask hard questions of our ministers, of our government, and also to, as TG said, to talk amongst ourselves. I think we should make use of those opportunities. Maybe not in this forum, but we need to interact quite a bit. Multi-choice, as Calvo said earlier, we actually contribute. We pay our BEE suppliers 3.3 billion every year. And this is by choice. Our preferred suppliers are of necessity. They have to be black empowered. Those that were not black empowered, we actually insisted, it's been a process of many years, we insisted that they make a commitment and they show us their credentials. So it's a very proud achievement, and we'll continue to drive this very hard. But without further ado, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming on this very cold, cold morning. And if people have ideas, business propositions for us, please step forward. We're willing to talk and engage with you. And let's broaden the pool. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolo, and that is a wrap, as they say. Enjoy your day.